Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Navilatul Amaniyah. I come from TBID that in 5th semester. In this video, I want to make a review video in a subject psycholinguistic based on my understanding that from first meeting until fifth meeting. Now I want to start from a first meeting. That in first meeting we talk about introduction to psycholinguistic. Before that we must know what is psychology. That psychology is the scientific study of the mind and behavior. That study of such area as human development and cognitive process. And also psycholinguistic can help us scientifically evaluate common belief and misconception about behavior and mental process. So psycholinguistic here, the study of language from a psychological perspective. And we study about psycholinguistic, the scope are acquisition, comprehension, loss, and production. For the next, in second meeting, we talk about language behavior and brain structure and function. For the first, I want to explain based on my understanding that about language behavior. Language behavior is that the mental mechanism underlying language processing. There is also about visual word recognition. In visual word recognition, there are to identify it by properties of the word visual. For example, modality. And the next orthographic. Orthographic here is words constructed in legal way. And the next phonological. Phonological here is talk about syllable and phoneme. For the next, about meaning, and last time case of activation. And now in second meeting also that we study about brain structure and function. In our brain or human brain there are four. For the first, the brain, the next, the cerebral cortex, and the third, longitudinal viscer, and last, corpus callosum. For the first, I want to explain about the brain. The brain is the basic information processing that we can receive information from the brain. And for the second, the cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex here is the gray wrinkled mass sits over the neck of the brain and processing of language. For the third, longitudinal viscer. Longitudinal viscer here we talk about separate right and left hemisphere. For the last, corpus callosum. In corpus callosum, that talk about the bundle of nerve fibers that connect to the two hemispheres. In the second meeting also, we study about the limbic system. In limbic system, there are four. For the first, hypothalamus, pituitary gland, amygdala, and hippocampus. Now I want to talk about in third meeting. That in third meeting, we talk about language center. In language center, there is a frontal lobes. that involve in speaking, muscle movement, judgment, and make some planning. And now, parietal lobes. That parietal lobes include the sensory cortex. And the next, occipital lobes. That occipital lobes include visual area which receive visual information from the opposite visual field. And for the next, temporal lobes. Temporal lobes here include the auditory area, auditory what? If that auditory information from the opposite ear. And also in the set meeting we study about anatomy of language. In anatomy of language there are two areas, that Broca's area and Broca's area. Now I want to tell you what is Broca's area. Broca's area is associated with speech production and articulation. And wordness area is critical language area in the superior temporal lobe connects to Broca's area. Okay, now I want to now in fourth meeting. In fourth meeting, we talk about lateralization and contralateration. Okay, localization here is different human cognitive abilities and behavior. And lateralization here is any cognitive function that is located in one brain. There are two hemispheres, specialists in deaf. For the first, right hemisphere. In right hemisphere, there are holistic reasoning, music processing, processing of non-linguistic, and visual processing. For the left hemisphere, there are analytic reasoning, temporal ordering, arithmetic, and language processing. And our brain here can work between right and left brain can work in one time. In the fourth meeting, we study about ears. For the ears, that absolutely our ears have to hear something, but it has different reason. It has different function or advantage because the brain mechanism that our right sensory information will be transmitted to our left hemisphere in vice versa. Meanwhile, our hemisphere have different function. In fifth meeting, that about aphasia or language disorder. Aphasia here provide faint evidence from localization of language. Expressive aphasia or Broca's aphasia. There are two, symptom and damage area. Symptom here contain words are okay or function words are not. In damage area, the front regions of left hemisphere. Okay, now wordness aphasia. In wordness aphasia, there are also symptom and damage area, but in another definition. Symptom here in wordness aphasia, comprehension in impaired. And the second damage area. Damage area here in wordness aphasia, temporal lobe of the left hemisphere. And no connection between Broca's and weakness area. Broca's area controlled by syntax and weakness area controlled by semantic. In Broca's aphasia, that the person can understand language and also the person can be producing speech. In weakness aphasia, the person can speak clearly, but the words that are put together make no sense. Okay. And also in weakness aphasia, loss of the ability to understand language. Okay, maybe just it from me. This is my explanation based on my understanding in psycholinguistic subject. And the last, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.